Hello to everyone and welcome to the cold case Eviana Rauter, also known as the Portbou girl or La Noia de Portbou. Now it's been 2 years that I gave interview to the Austrian program that helped identify Eviana Rauter, Ungelost Cold Case Austria. So I gave interview to Mr. Benedikt Morak. It was 2 years ago. I was into investigating the case for, at that time, about half a year. Basically, I investigated this case since February of 2023, so it's been 2.5 years. Also, there's my, I have the Facebook group, Justice for Evi Rauter. My conclusions have changed in the interview I gave to Mr. Morak. I claimed it was assassination, it was kidnapping and assassination of Evi Rauter, and it was a kind of ritual, some kind of religious ritual of sacrifice, but at that time I believed that the Austrian campers were the guilty one. Now, of course, now I think it's the responsible people are probably a group of people, quite large group of people from Portbou. People that organize this ritual murder to perform some kind of sacrifice on that hill where is the cemetery, where is that pine tree, because beneath around is it's a Neolithic old cemetery, which was in that era like some kind of temple, a cult of the ancestors, you know, like a kind of sacred place. And this was the place of that murder is where the ceremony of the opening of the construction of Walter Benjamin monument, the passage, the passages, was planned to start on 22nd of September 1990, so it's about 3 weeks after the murder of Evi Rauter, and it was like 50 years of death of Benjamin Walter. So it's like, is that a coincidence? So the monument was built like 30 meters away from that pine tree, and if you look in the Google Earth application, you can very well see that this passage, the monument to Walter Benjamin, the passage with the stairs that goes to the sea, when you go out, there's also like a marked path, and it's directly pointing to the pine tree. You know, and so 3 weeks later, after the death of Evi Rauter, there was like this ceremony of international significance when the construction of the monument, you know, was celebrated. This ceremony of beginning of the construction. So anyway, when you look at the photos of the hanging that can be found on the internet, of the body hanging on that pine tree, every Rauter, the girl was facing, you know, hang like this, and she was facing the tree trunk of that pine tree, but so her face and her body was oriented in the northwest direction. So let's assume, like, if this there is the north, direction north, and south is behind me, and the west to that side, and the east to that side, she was in this position, northwest, okay. So you can check it out, you know, if you watch the photos, the pine tree, and you know, the geographical map of Portbou is just, she was faced between the north and west, so she was oriented to that side. Okay, now, excuse me, now, there were photos taken from the journalists from Portbou, not the police. The other photos, these low quality photos, were made by the police, which are all black and white. But the photos that you can see, one in color and one black and white, from nearby, from this side of every Rauter hanged, and this building nearby, and the street down is, you know, seen here. I'm talking about these two photos. And then the third photo is one where she has a bed sheet. It's a colored big photo with her having the bed sheet over the head, and photograph from the back. Okay, these three photos, which are spread all over the internet, these three photos were taken by the people from Portbou, namely Carles Serrijo and Alex Iglesias. So for the young people that were 17, 18 at that time, okay, supposedly they were taken by them, okay. Now, they said they took these photos in the morning, 4th of September, at between like 8 and 9 in the morning, because they arrived there about 8 o'clock in the morning when the body was discovered, and supposedly there were some Guardia Civils nearby, like securing the perimeter, but in the photos you don't see nobody there. You don't see nobody in the street, you see any police around, any detail of them in the photos, okay. And at about 9 o'clock in the morning arrived the judicial police from Figueras that did the investigation, the team of Enrique Gomez Varela, and so these photos, then they took their own photos, and you know, like, so the photos that were published of the people from Portbou were done between 8 and 9 in the morning, okay. So at that time, you know, like, in September, this is Spain, they have the Berlin Central Time, which means like in the Berlin, in the noon, if you are in Berlin, it's the sun is directly above. And now in Spain, at the same time, they have the noon there, but to the west, when the sun gets from this to the west, it's the sun is a little bit to this side, so it's not directly. So it's like, so the sunrise comes there 1 hour and a half, 1 hour 50 minutes later. Okay. So between 8 and 9 o'clock, that would be like if you were in Berlin at that time, it would be the sun. You know, at that time, you know, the sunrise came later in Portbou, so it was quite early. If these photos were taken 8, 9, so the sun would be rising, and if she was faced northwest, and the sun comes from the east. You know, the sun coming there, and she's like here. The sun is hitting from here, and you would just see, you know, the shades there, that from this side, the back, and this side would be lighted by the sun, and this side would be a skirt, like you see here. Here, the sunlight, and this is a skirt, just like this. You understand? But when you see the photos, it's contrary. The sun is coming from this side. So she's like this, and you see the sun is lighting up this part of her body, here. You know, contrary to that, you see here is light, and here is dark, because sun is coming from this side, from the window. But if you are outside, and here it will be like lighted from this, it's lighted from this side. You understand? When you watch the photo, you see the light coming from the west. How is possible that the light is coming from the west when it's supposed to be morning? It should come from the east. That's because these photos of those people from Portbou were taken in the evening. In the evening. How is that possible? Because they were taken on the evening on 3rd of September, the day before. At about sunset, because it's on the west. It's not sun somewhere up, it's on the west. This is evening of the September 3rd that this photo was taken. Now when you watch the photos of the police, and these photos are very low quality, you know, of the Guardia Civil, because somebody photographed the photo, so lots of details are lost. But looking carefully at that photos, you can see a reverse, you know, like you can see is when she's filmed like this part is just like me now. This part is a skirt, facing this part of the body facing west, and on the east you see it's lighted up. The back is lighted up, and here is more darker. So the photos of the police were taken on the September, you know, looking at the photos, looking at the evidence. You can see that these photos were taken, the ones from the people from Portbou, of the journalists, were taken the day before in the evening, and one of the Guardia Civils were taken, the ones of the Guardia Civils of the investigators were taken in the morning. Now you can say, how was that possible? She disappeared on the morning of 3rd of September. How could she have gotten, you know, how she was kidnapped and hanged there in the evening? Because like the timeline before, she's like 9 a.m. on the 3rd of September, she was in the apartment with her sister, and supposedly she had to be hanged at about 8 o'clock, you know, 9 in the evening, it's sunset, it's already dark. It was done before, maybe around 8 o'clock in the evening on 3rd of September, that she was hanging on that tree. That means it have passed about maybe 11 hours. And they had to brought her to the Portbou like in 10 hours time. You understand? Its timeline is very short. That's what's very, very strange about this. But the photographs don't lie, you know. That's if you assume that she was like transferred with a car or van or something. But she could have been flown there. Or maybe maybe it was a combination of some kind of speedboat, even speedboat from Italy to, you know, to Costa Brava would take a lot of time. I don't know. I'm just saying, but it's not so important, you know. It's important that these people lied. These photos were taken in the evening. Now I don't believe that these two at that time kids, you know, Alex Iglesias and Carlos Cerrijo, made that photos, because it's like they just claim to make that photos. Because if somebody carefully organized this crime, wouldn't put that to the chance, you know, that the same one who took the photos and who are like kind of witnessing of that thing would also appear in the media and claim to have taken these photos, you know. And now they claim all other photos are destroyed. Just these 3 carefully photos were published, 2 very close up, so you have to really investigate the details to see that it's evening and it's not the morning, and any other incriminating things, you know. Because in that photo you don't see any people. What's strange is it's the evening and there's nobody on the balcony, on the windows, nobody in the street. It's like deserted. There's no sign of any Guardia Civil guarding the perimeter, nothing like this. And if you think that I'm exaggerating, you have to understand this. It's now been confirmed, even by the you know mass media, you know, like official version that was published in the Guardian, that, you know, the Austrian campers were sleeping half in the tent and half of them in the big red van with the Austrian Austrian registrations. Big red van. So all the people that claim to have seen, you know, the girl hanging there, and there were like people nearby, bystanders and stuff, and they were like neighbors, but nobody of that people, nobody mentioned the big red van that's just back there. They talk about these Austrians that they saw, but nobody is talking about this big red van. Why is that? You know, when it was, you know, the crimes, they never said, yeah, somebody said, yeah, the Austrians was there, but there were half of them in the van, half of them in the tent. There was like a big red van around, you know, like, and stuff. Nobody mentions that. They're like, they don't talk about this thing. They're just fabricating stuff and just, you know, talking, coming there with a plan to manipulate the public, the people from Portbou. All that appeared in the media is just lying, and then you have like contradicting versions of these people, like in the articles throughout the years, when you see that they are not there by coincidence. Somebody just, you know, telling something, you know, it's just it's done in the direction to either claim it to be a suicide or that the Austrian campers were the guilty one. Nothing that would make suspicious the people of Portbou. But okay. So if she was hanged in the evening, this is a small village, don't you think that people would see what's going on? Okay, they could put up like this bed sheet or some screen or I don't know what, to like anybody looking at that hill, you know, wouldn't understand what is going on. But in the end, they left the body there, and then the sunset came, and in that time is people walking. You know, this pine tree is very visible. It's a big pine tree on the top of the hill, on that slope of the hill, and it's like seen from this beach front. You can see it from this street that is the Pujada de Mirador, that when you go to the cemetery, and it can be seen, what is most important, from this outpost on the frontier up, where the Guardia Civil is guarding the frontier. So these people sitting there at that time should have noticed something on that hill, a group of people doing something. You know, it's the people, this Guardia Civil, they live in the town. It's like if somebody is sitting there observing things, you know, should have seen something. You know, you cannot just put the body there, do some kind of ceremony, hang it there, take the photos and everything, and nobody have seen that. But these people are afraid; they are not going to speak. This is like war crimes, you know, like when the people is okay. These people did that to that people, some war crime, they killed them and stuff, and nobody want to talk about it. You know, they don't want to talk about it because it's like this is you shouldn't talk about it. It's taboo, and because they're afraid, you know, of the repercussions of their own people, you know, speaking out. So I think if that you know, like based on these evidences that we have, lots of people should have seen her hanging there. Lots of people should have seen her being hanged there. Understand? And then the whole town in the next month would talk about that, discuss that among themselves. So that this, even this group of people, dozens of them that saw that, who were innocent, who didn't organize that, no part of this murderous sect of this group of people, but they would like quietly talk between them. So I think like they have known that, but until now nobody have spoken out, and maybe a day will come when somebody will, you know, have the moral courage and the moral value to speak out, because it's like horrific crime. You know, horrific crime, a bizarre one, to just go out, you know, and to kidnap a girl, 19-year-old girl in Italy, brought her in Portbou and hang her in some kind of sacrifice, ritual of sacrifice, you know, for this old graveyard, this old religion, you know. And these people are supposed to be Catholics. They have like a cathedral there. They go to that church. I really don't understand that. I really don't understand that. So, but in the conclusion, if we assume that I might be wrong, that I might be right, I don't need to convince you, you know. Any group of, let's say, experts, like somebody like who you would trust to study that thing, if any court would order, like, you know, the Fiscalia de Florencia, you know, like the judicial the judiciary of Italy, that they closed this 18 months investigation into this crime. But if they would appoint a group of experts to study these photographs, to study the photographs of Evie hanged there, being done by the people from Portbou, these 3 photographs, they would conclude that they were made, they were filmed in the evening, 3rd of September 1990, not in the morning. And that's, this would have like, you know, they would be on the path to find out the real guilty ones, you know, who committed this crime. And you can investigate that for yourself. You have the photographs, sunlight, and shades, and the geography. The directions, where is the east, west, north, where the sun is going up, when the sun is going down, and you can investigate it for yourself. But it's like the evidence is there, and there's no chance, you cannot hide the truth. We have the evidences, we have these photographs, they're spread all over the internet. They cannot erase them. They're there. One more point I want to make. I corroborated with the gentleman that lives in that part of Spain, and we have exchanged information. So this gentleman, he traveled to Portbou, and he took some photos, and he asked some of the local people about it. So what happened is he went to the bar, to one of bar of Portbou, I presume on the seafront, and he encountered there the lady that was the owner of that bar, that was old enough to could have been the witness of the event and things. So he started to ask her about Rauter, about that event, about La Noia de Portbou, how she's known on Costa Brava in Spain. And the reaction of the lady when he mentioned that and asked some question, that the lady, just for asking that, got very furious and started to yell like, "Get out," and blah 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 blah. And just in a minute later, she started to cry. She broke out and started to cry. And when being further asked, she just hid and didn't come out. So this gentleman, he stood there and he was kind of shocked. I just asked the question, "Do you know something about it? And things, do you remember it?" And the lady yelling at him, getting extremely angry, and then crying, crying her eyes out, and then not wanting to answer that question, she just hid somewhere. He was waiting there, he was shocked, and he just left. And he told me this story. Now, to this day, this gentleman, he doesn't believe in what I concluded. He's have another point of view. So it's but it's what he told me. Between us, and it makes sense. To that time, I thought this. I don't know why she would react like this. Is at that time, that was before when I believed it was the Austrians who were guilty of that, but maybe I couldn't explain that, but now it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense, the investigators in Italy, they published, they had an official statement that they were interested in the testimony of Carmina Cole, the lady that lived nearby, that heard some kind of discussion below that pine tree on that where Evie was found hanged during the night, and between some young people, and she was afraid to open the window and to look what's happening. She heard a girl crying and stuff, and this testimony, this lady, she deceased a few months ago. Testimony of Carmina Cole is false. She fabricated that. This didn't happen. You know, when I was basing my case investigation on that testimony, there were things within the testimony, within other things that happened that made it questionable. There were some details that made it questionable, but Evi Rauter, she was hanging in the evening. Nothing happened that night. Nothing happened that night. It was totally fabricated. And on the testimony of the Carmina Cole, she said she woke up to find the girl hanged and the police around and the people watching by. And that didn't happen because she was the one who was presumably the first person to saw Evi hanged and to alarm the police or send someone to alarm the police. And she was stated as such in one article in 2010, and all the other articles where it was from the era before these articles are hard to find in the internet, you know. But so she claimed to have seen. She was the first to see Evi Rauter in the morning, and on the third testimony that she made for the Los Crims, the Caras Porta, she made she changed her story, you know, like she got on the balcony. There was already police there and other people. So, and then based on the photos, this is a false testimony, and I think that the Italian investigators, when they realized that it was a false testimony and this is old case, they didn't want to have some kind of international conflict, you know, to get into that. Once they saw it was like a false, they discarded that and they closed the investigation. Because why didn't they interview Carmina Cole? They could do it throughout the internet. Made the interview just with the Skype. You know, they didn't do that. You know, they didn't travel there to Portbou to investigate that thing. I believe they started to realize that it's the people from Portbou and this group of people have a lot of influence in the local government, in the local authorities, and they didn't want to get into that. You know, an old case, a murder of one girl was not worth like this international kind of conflict, you know, and not presented with some clear evidences. So it's like they said, okay, you know, we don't have clear evidences, but we believe it was a murder, and if there's new evidences coming, we are going to open the investigation. But so now the investigation is temporarily closed until new evidence arrive. But I'm just saying, like, if they would investigate the photos, they would come to that conclusion. They might have also concluded what I know. It goes against anything that was being published, you know, in the mass media. But I'm the one who is fighting for the justice. So I don't care what they are publishing or not. I'm investigating to find the real truth behind that. So you can see that the story that's been told, the information that is being based, is what these people said who are from Portbou. But there is like, I saw the document that was flashed on the screen in the Crimes series, the report of the Guardia Civil, whenever Rauter, when they investigated made the investigation about the death, where the time of death of every Rauter was assumed to have occurred between 11 p.m., that's 11 p.m. 3rd of September, and 8 o'clock a.m. when she was found the next day. That was assumed time of death that was put in the official document. And the forensic, Rogelio Lacassi, who did some kind of autopsy, very superficial, didn't try to determine the time of death. He didn't even give some approximation of the time of death, which he should have done based on, the marks that are left on the neck and other things, like. So it's once the person is dead, is the how long was she hanged in that tree? It's like looking at that marks. He should have. It would be kind of possible to make a broad assumption of the time the death occurred. Look, if she was hanged at 8 p.m. because like sunset comes to the Portbou at about 9 p.m. So these photos, it would be dark. So it was before, it was just before the sunset at Portbou, and if she was hanged around 8 p.m. on 3rd of September, she would be hanging on that tree for 12 hours before the police arrived, and then they took the body somewhere between 10 and 11 in the morning. So she would be hanging in that tree for like for like 15 hours. For 15 hours. From 8 o'clock in the evening up to like between 10, 11. That's about 15 hours. So 15 hours of the body hanging with the gravity on that tree is different than if she would like be hanged like at 7 a.m. and hanging there for a few hours before she was taken down. You understand? So it's like some forensic would be able to see some kind of difference there. But he didn't even try to like give any estimation of the time of death. But the Guardia Civil did. The Guardia Civil did. With telling like it was his duty to be, at that crime scene, and he makes some excuses not to come there, and then the Guardia Civil assumed it was like between 11 o'clock and 8 o'clock, you know, somewhere during the night. They made this broad assumption. At the end of the day, the body disappeared. And the body doesn't just disappear. It can only be robbed. You know, it can only be taken somewhere. So it was embalmed, supposed to be embalmed body of heavy Rauter, also protected with a plastic bag, and it was not in that niche, in that grave in the wall, where it was supposed to be by the order of the judge, in a beneficiary grave. She was supposedly be put in this mass grave on that plane in front of this niche, and they have dig up that field, all of that field. You know, first they dig where they assumed that year they would put some bodies inside, based on the testimony of the cemetery workers, based on the testimony, you know, based on some photos from that era, aerial photos and things. So it was an expert group that determined where she was put in that mass grave, the location. And then that was done in the June in 2024, and then it took them half a year to actually start exhumation of her body. And when they exhumed that part, they found nothing. They didn't find her body, they found other bodies, other bones, and they found even amputees of the people, the small child, you know, that were like the abortion cadavers and stuff, and but they didn't find the well-preserved embalmed body in a plastic bag. So they start to dig around, and they dig up to 3 meters into the ground. Like, that means like there's no chance she would be somewhere deeper there, and the whole field was dig out. The whole field. Her body is not here. It was taken somewhere else. And it wasn't the Austrians who did that, by the way. I mean, if she was kidnapped, if she was killed, murdered, and hanged there, like some sort of exhibition in the strap position, and later she was to be put in this beneficiary grave, and she was not there because it was said that the officials, the workers of the cemetery needed a place, so they put her, you know, in that. But who did they put in that? They never said, like, who did they put then if they had to free the space in that beneficiary grave to put some person inside, you know, like. And there were no papers. Any person that you are just moving from within the graveyard, you have to like give a public announcement of that, to give 3 months to the person related to the deceased person, so they can, you know, decide what to do with the body. Should they like put the body somewhere else, you know, like, and there was no announcements, and this body should have not be moved without explicit order of the judge, and they bypassed that, and they supposedly put her there, and she's not there in that mass grave. So first, you cannot do that if you cannot rob the body of Evie if you don't have the control of the people in the cemetery who are going to lie. No, we moved the body there in the mass grave, then it's not in mass grave, and you know, you have to like have the control of these cemetery officials. You don't just go to the cemetery and rob the body, you know, like, because then the official will say, no, we don't know where is the body. But they said, no, we moved it there in the mass grave, and they didn't. So they lied. That means they know who took the body. There's somebody who is like, they are scared of to talk, and so they are making up lies. Do you understand? There's somebody who is controlling, who have control over the people who are who worked for that cemetery in Figueras. And you are telling me that the people who made it possible that Evie would be in 10 hours, that she could be in about 10 hours in Portbou, kidnapped there and hanged 8 o'clock in the evening. The people who could organize all of that are not connected with the people who stole the body and who scared the cemetery officials not to talk about it and to make up lies. Do you understand? Or the false testimony of Carmina Cole that was never challenged. Nobody said, you know, like, the people that work in the crimes, Carles Porta and his people there, they had all the documents of Guardia Civil. And they never said that they said the Austrians left the Portbou, but never said that the Austrians just went 30 kilometers to the south in this San Pere de Pescador and stayed there in the camping, this big camping. And there was surveillance by the Guardia Civil, so Guardia Civil said, we never saw nothing suspicious. But if the Austrians did anything to do with the kidnapping or murder of Evie Rauter, there would be like some evidences in the van and stuff. If they just went north half a kilometer and passed the frontier, they would be out of the jurisdiction of Guardia Civil. Right? So that would be a logical thing to do. Everybody would do that. No, they stayed there. And nobody was talking about it until these facts came out. But this journalist and the Carles Porta and his equipe of crimes, they never mentioned the red van of Austrians that was parked outside, including the Jesus Varela, who never talked about knocking on that van, you know. He never mentioned the van, he never mentioned other things. He mentioned what the people who were in the production of that program tell him to count, or they have cut out the part they wanted to put there, you know. But I mean, this is like intentional, you know, like the people who murdered Evie Rauter, they have control over this investigation, local investigators who work for the newspapers, of the TV crews who are making documentary about Evie Rauter. They have the control over the cemetery in Figueras. And this is connected, you know. Disappearance of Evie Rauter in Italy, her death in Portbou, and the disappearance of her body. It's all one event. It's all done by the same people. And all the lies that they're fabricating and putting out there are also done by these people influencing other people what to publish there. But what I'm presenting you is just you can watch it for yourself. But don't believe the official version. It's totally fabricated. You understand? It's totally fabricated. And what I was saying, I have other videos, you know, on my primary YouTube channel, Balbos, you have the playlist of the case of every router with over 300, 400 videos. And I talked 1 year before the exhumation of her body in Figueira Cemetery that the body is not there, that it was stolen. And nobody believed. Even people who like talking about who could have murdered her and things, nobody believed that. No, she's there, she's there. I said, no, she's not there. And I was one of the first to publish, because I found the data that the Austrians didn't leave Spain, that they were there in that camp, and that was a contrary to the theory that they murdered every Rauter, because if they did that, apart from like coming to that place and in the middle of the night arranging her body like this, there, and all the stuff with that precision, I mean, would be highly impossible. And then the data that the fact that was in the documents of Guardia Civil that they went into that camp nearby and stayed there for a few days, that means this was not discussed, in the newspaper articles, in all the whatever documentaries that were made about the death of every Rauter. It's a conspiracy of people from Portbou. The monument of Walter Benjamin, the passage, this is like, you go there and you go downstairs, because this is a symbol of that Neolithic grave that's on that hill slope where the pine tree is in the middle. Around that and inside is this necropolis, like a mass grave, like this shrine from the Neolithic times, and it's hidden. It's hidden. It's not being investigated as other these Neolithic tombs have been discovered in the zone of Pyrenees. You have the monuments and old graves, these menhirs, and over 100 in the Pyrenees. And the Pyrenees, they end in Portbou. But this was never investigated, and this the hill where she was found is underneath is the Neolithic tomb, the grave, mass grave of these old people who used to live like in Neolithic times in Portbou. And on the other part of the hill is the cemetery of Portbou, the Catholic cemetery, civil cemetery. Before that, it was like two cemeteries there. The Catholic one and like this first was built by the Freemasons who lived in Portbou, and the other people who are not Catholics, and then it merged into one, this municipal cemetery of Portbou, and the other cemetery is just close by on that slope, with the monument pointing at the pine tree, which is some kind of symbol, It's on this circular plane, in the middle of this circular plane on that slope, which you can like see in my other videos. You can see in the old photos of Portbou and other things, like just watch the architecture of Portbou. And I don't want to get into that topic, but anyway, this is a long video. If you've come to the so far. I encourage you to look for the photos of the hanged heavy router and try to determine at what time they were taken. The evidence is there for all people to see. It cannot be hidden. She was hanged at the sunset, 3rd of September 1990. That's the day she died, not on the next day. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.